Hello, everybody. This is Carol Maletta. Welcome to the Parenting 411 podcast, where we share information parents need from sources they can trust. Today, we're joined by Ambassador Dr. Melody Garcia, an international best-selling author, award-winning global keynote speaker, and one of the few certified P&A coaches in the world. Recognized as one of the most influential Filipino Americans, Dr. Melody Garcia was named among the TOFA, aka the Outstanding Filipino Americans Top 10 in 2020, sharing that honor with the names like Bruno Mars, recording artist Her, as well as Bobby Murphy, co-founder of Snapchat. With over 2 decades in Fortune 100 corporate management, her expertise has led to significant business successes. And her book, Women Who Influence, was inducted into the U.S. Library of Congress in 2018. She is a fervent humanitarian. She founded the 14th Congressional Advocacy Team for UNICEF in Orlando and has been at the forefront of numerous philanthropic endeavors. A global media presence, Dr. Melody Garcia has hosted world-exclusive interviews with iconic figures and has spoken on international stages, as well as domestic, including Harvard University. She shared empowerment platforms with legends like Michelle Obama and Les Brown. In essence, Dr. Melody Garcia is a force driving global change with her impactful messages. So welcome, Dr. Melody Garcia.
Well, thank you so much, Carol. It's a pleasure and an honor to be on your podcast. How are you?
I am fine today. Thank you so much for asking. And I would love to talk about your inspiring journey and, just walk us through some pivotal moments that led you to where you are today.
Absolutely. I've always had this quote that the deepest adversities becomes the catalyst to our God-given purpose. He doesn't line up, I'm sure there's a lot of folks right now, including I find myself in full transparency, that in the deepest adversities, we question the why. Why is this happening? Have I not been obedient? Have I not done anything right? But if I compared to the scripture of Job was faultless, right? Job was faultless, and what the massive losses that he has made. So, in truth, transparency, I started really digging into the scriptures. God's blueprint of emptying and the shaking and the deep valleys has almost been consistent. Joseph was sold into slavery by his brothers, goes into prison for something he didn't commit for 13 years, only to become the second most powerful man. Moses called out of the Pharaoh's palace to go into the wilderness to save nations. Esther, right? The same thing. Yes. If you look at how it was described from back then, she was in the harem. Today, we put that as modern day slavery.
Right.
Honestly, if you look at it, but her purpose was to save her nation. So who are we to ask why is God doing this when Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper," right? And not harm you. So again, I go back to having to disappear from my own country as a little girl due to government duress of a murder of a family member who knew too much. And they silenced him, and that same corrupt, circle went after my family. So my last recollection was leaving the country with no goodbyes, disappearing in the middle of the night to emerge in the United States. So even if we've come here as tourists, right? Now this was different. This was permanency, and we had to leave everything and lost everything behind. So I go from a life of comfort with well-known parents to a life of struggle, seeing my mother make $3 an hour to support 2 daughters. Back then, and seeing just the adversities of her own life, but not giving up on faith. Now, the true calling of my life. So I was the typical Asian American, doing really good academically, doing really good in the corporate, and I had one vision: I'm going to retire from corporate because that's what's ingrained. You're going to do really, really well. You're going to have the corner executive office. But there's also that statement that says you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans.
That's right.
Those plans got disrupted in 2013, which was the activation of my purpose when the Philippines was hit with a massive typhoon
Mm.
that took over 7,000 lives, and something just told me,
Hmm.
help them. And I didn't know how. I was, a mother with two young ones, and I'm like the typical mindset of, well, I guess I can make a donation, except God's like, no, you're not. You're going to do something else completely different. And
Right.
directed me to watch this internet news, the Holy Spirit did. And I saw a brokenness that I have not experienced, especially watching another woman's life, another mother who
Hmm.
basically lost everybody, not just everything, everybody
Wow.
in her family lineage because of this typhoon or hurricane, as we call it in the United States,
Hmm.
and her two dead children, that she couldn't even bury because of the amount of debris. And that broke my soul, because losing all your family, losing everything you own, losing your children, which is one of the deepest pains
Right.
anyone can ever experience. And she had one question: why would God allow her to survive this?
Hmm. Hmm.
It was such a valid question.
Right.
Such a valid question. It
Hmm.
was strong enough to put me on my knees, crying, and unleash this prayer that took me on this kingdom adventure, because
Hmm.
the prayer went, help me help them, and activate all the gifts you've given me to help me reach them.
And that's the thing,
Mhm.
as you were talking about the adversities that we might experience, and we wonder why they were allowed. But God uses all of our experiences, the
Yes.
adversity and that we go through, also the mistakes that we make.
Mhm.
When we kind of fall out of alignment with His
Right.
will, He's able to use all of that to
Amen.
bring us back to
And
our purpose.
right, and just the alignment, because that prayer launched a benefit concert that was supposed to be small scale, that became big scale in 3 weeks, with everything being provided before I can ask for anything. That launching was called One Night, One Voice, the
Hmm.
humanitarian benefit concert for the Philippines. Had no experience in putting big events together, but again, you ask and you shall receive.
Right.
And that ended up saving over 20,000 lives halfway around the world.
Mm,
Right? That
what a
was the
blessing.
start of it. Of
Hmm.
course, adversities came because the enemy doesn't want you aligned in your destiny.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
more adversities came, but then that became the catalyst when God said, oh, you thought 20,000 was cool. By 2016, I launched UNICEF Orlando Advocacy,
Hmm.
and had no experience in dealing with governments, let alone congressional advocacy. Yet I found myself on the steps of Capitol Hill going, what am I doing here? That was 7 years ago.
Hmm.
More miracles happened, and 7 years later, I have now led 51 congressional meetings.
Hmm.
Capitol Hill, God's grace, had won every single advocacy turn with my team, and Orlando team is now the #1 most celebrated advocacy team in the nation. That along the
Congratulations.
journey, got into media, got into multimedia, left corporate life in 2018, and God just opened the doorways to meeting global leaders representing the United States in many key platforms, birthing my platform called Social Conscious Leadership,
Hmm.
which is basically a direct mirror. So in layman's terms, I'm going to put a direct mirror on your moral, ethical, celestial responsibility to humanity, of
Hmm.
the deepest level of service from the trenches to global resonance,
Hmm.
right? Because what is truly your defined purpose? I've also become an authority in women empowerment because I teach it differently. And that had launched many other catalysts I would call conversions or converters of massive impact in all their handling. So today I consult with different governments.
Hmm.
Today I am asked to speak in massive platforms,
Hmm.
and about to launch a co-hosted television show that's about to be streamed in 35 countries. And just watch this, Carol. Haven't even launched, and
Right.
there's another network already interested in the show.
Hmm.
I've just gotten an offer for my own radio, so instead of just a podcast that I've had before, now it's an online radio platform,
Hmm.
and doubling it as a podcast and 3 international magazine handlings. Why? The message is needed to be heard. So God will take the airwaves, the magazine, the television
Hmm.
station, and position just so. But it's not just about my story. It's finding people like yourself, true impactors, not influencers, not the one with a blue check mark, not the one who paid for advertising to validate that they're somebody, right?
Right.
It's about, give me this unsung heroes of kingdom that's doing really good for humanity, because I know it's not just me. So I'm going to find you and give you the platforms and also really redirect, in the world of confusion we live in, the children are growing up in, is where are those kingdom values and standards that needs to be heard.
Well, I that's interesting that you're talking about that, because often that's what I think about when I read the headline, see what's going on both in our government and in governments around the world. And like, that's almost what it's going to have to take, like really people that just, yeah, they're qualified, but their hearts are different. Their minds are different. In order to really take us off of this collision course that we're on. I mean, with our environment, we're destroying our environment and just our relationships with each other. So I appreciate that, the work that you're doing very much. Now, I am curious, slightly on a different topic, but I know that it informs your work, and that is the Psycho-Neuro Actualization.
Yes.
And what is it for those of us who are listening and might not have heard of it? Describe what it is and then how it has transformed the way you approach your personal and professional growth. We'll be right back after this. If you're looking to reach a massive audience of parents and caregivers, then look no further than ProPix by the Parenting 411, the ultimate marketing program designed to skyrocket your brand to new heights. With ProPix, we've created 3 incredible packages to suit your marketing needs and budget. So let's take a look. First up is our social starter package. You'll receive a stunning graphic promo piece, plus we'll also feature your brand on the Parenting 411 Instagram page. It's the perfect way to make a memorable first impression and get parents buzzing about your business. Now, if you're ready to level up, our Parenting Pro package is where it's at. You'll enjoy all the benefits of the Social Starter package, plus more awesome benefits, including exposure on the Parenting 411 podcast, which reaches parents in more than 22 countries each week. But wait, there's more. For those seeking the pinnacle of marketing power, our Elite Exposure package is the way to go. You'll get even more exposure across our platform, including thousands of followers and connections on LinkedIn. Get ready to dominate the airwaves and establish yourself as the go-to resource for families everywhere. Take advantage of ProPix by the Parenting 411 today and unlock unparalleled marketing opportunities for your business. But I should tell you that prices are set to increase on November 1st, so act now. ProPix by the Parenting 411 is your passport to the hearts and minds of parents. Visit ProPixbyP411.com. Join us today and watch the magic happen. And we're back with the Parenting 411.
This was a very interesting journey as well, because I was vetted for the coaching certification for 3 whole years, and I didn't even know. And the person that vetted me is one of the top behavioral scientists in the world by the name of Dr. Steve Maraboli. We met because of a media journey there. I interviewed him, not really knowing his reach. At the time, that was back in 2015, right? The media, he had probably 150 million reader reach for the year, which was impressive. Now he's at 130 million reader reach per month. Right? Per month. But this man is dynamic, and he was measuring for consistency, integrity, delivery, and just honesty.
Sure.
Are you who you say you are? Right? After 3 years, not 3 months, because the mask falls off, but regardless of what life puts you through,
yes,
are you the same woman? And he vetted a lot of people and only 7 made it. And I'm one of those 7. So he approached me to say, I want to mentor you directly.
Okay.
It's going to be one-on-one certification in Psycho-Neuro Actualization. I had the exact same question you had. What is that? I've heard of personal development, NLP, all this, typical cookie cutter coaching. Right. But what is PNA? Again, simplified terms, maximizing the human potential by coming to reality with their agreement, by bringing them out of that toxic trauma agreements, right? That's deeply ingrained, and shortcutting therapy at the end of the day. Because and this is not in ways a negative reflection, because some people will need that deep therapy, But sometimes, and I'm just going to be, I'm known for my bold audacity to tell the truth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes some of the therapists I've come across keeps their clients in trauma state because that is how they pay their bills. Right? PNA goes the complete opposite. Let's get to the root cause, address that so strongly so that we can discover all those beautiful gifts that you have using different behavioral modalities from psycho, right? And neuro and brain mechanics and behavior mechanics of who is Carol at the end of the day? What is this beautiful package? But what are you hiding? And let's destroy all of those negative, and get away from the environment, completely change the dynamics. What makes this different, as I said, is, for example, some of the bigger names out there, the bigger gurus, as I call it. Hey, I want to be a coach. Perfect. You pay us this fee, right? And I'm going to give you the exact same training as everybody's going. And that's cookie cutter. But PNA, there's a reason why he vetted, because he knew who could handle. And that is with some of the methodologies I use, not only in the female, the women empowerment, but when I'm called into the bigger realms of I would say advisory and consultancy, government spaces, right? What made it different? Well, the truth is in the evidence of impact.
Right.
The truth is in the evidence of where my clients had been led. A lot of people invest in so much high-level coaching that gives you tool set, right? But there's a lack of accountability. But it's not just the execution. Because it's a cookie cutter program, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. So PNA literally modifies and re-engineers all the cookie cutter tool sets out there. And why? I take a look at my mentor, Dr. Maraboli. He's not in a big stage, just gathering 10,000 people. He doesn't need to. He doesn't need to. Governments call him. The Pentagon calls him on crisis. Why? Human behavior at the end of the day.
So how can this be accessible to, the average mom, and how do you think it can benefit moms in navigating the challenges of parenting and motherhood?
So there's the mom, there's the dad, there's the single mom, there's the single dad. This is the reality we live in, right? So first, I do have some clients that do reach out to me, not some, but all of them, that says, how can you help me? Because again, I can claim to be an influencer, I can claim to be an impactor, I don't have to. The authority walks into the room, right? The accolades are God-given credentials that says, look, here's a placement and a favor on this one that is significantly different from other coaches, right? So when they reach out to me, I've had a mother reach out to me from Belgium. I want to be an international keynote speaker, but I'm scared, right? And she goes, I can't even go speaking past 2 minutes, but I have a story that needs to I know it's going to help people. And the first thing I said is, please don't title it Breaking Glass Ceiling, Trauma into Triumph. The typical regurgitation. There's more to this. So I go deep with my clients, right? When you say you want to create an impact, I'm going to be, just transparent here. What makes your story different from the other person that just went through a trauma? And what if that person's trauma was deeper than yours? Because one of the teachings that my mentor did say to me is, look, nobody cares about your story until you win. I can go into a grocery store, ask that same question, what has been their deepest pain? And everybody's going to give you generational traumas, right? Or abuses of many forms. So what makes this different? So to the parents that's looking, or clients, or any type of consultation coaching, I go deeper. We're going to re-engineer your entire story so that the maximum impact is there. So I had put her on a Paris platform speaking format with me. And sure enough, there were 60 women. And I said to her, let's look at the reality of this. What do you think they're going to talk about outside the scientific medical, expertise they have? These are women. We're emotional creatures. The first thing they're going to say is, this is what I've been through. And then I finally emerged from it. But that is not the true definition of winning. Winning is when you take those adversities and do an impact. That's why when I go to change, or when I go to stages and I hear, you're so inspirational, well, inspiration can be found in a fortune cookie. It doesn't last. but transformational messages and actions, call to actions does. So this young mother, right? Instead of, I said, what are the current issues facing your country? What is the aggravation? What is the stigma? Do you see how it changes now? It is not just about you. It's about the women that is in your, ethnic group. It is about the challenges you're facing. What have you experienced in that? When she told me, I modified her entire speech. It's no longer this pain into purpose, very typical. Because if I was to put you on the auditorium, Carol, and your audience, if you heard the 10th speaker saying the exact same thing, you've lost them. You've lost the 11th, the 12th, because it's like, oh my gosh, it's the same thing over again. But when you address current issues, right? And verbal re-engineering is a gift. I bring in new behavior sections and the bold audacity, as I call it, go there, go where people won't go, because they're afraid to rattle the tree. I'm like, I'm not, and I'm going to teach you how not to, because Joshua 1:9, have I not commanded thee to be strong and courageous? Do not be afraid, for I will be with you wherever you go. What if you're the solution to someone's prayer, but you're so caught up in your pain into purpose existence? So the packaging for her became the misplaced minority. What is all this labeling?
Yeah, I like this a lot because I'm what I'm hearing. You were talking about the international stage, but what I'm hearing is a lot to think about for even moms that want to activate their gifts or activate their purpose in their local community, even the impacts that they can have in terms of really the journey they've taken, the story that they've had, and moving beyond that and doing something to change other people's lives, to solve problems that they see. And I that can be very, very encouraging. And I wonder, your book, Women Who Influence, and I know that has inspired many people. What other kind of advice would you share from there with mothers who are trying to find their voice and influence beyond their own homes?
It starts with the home, actually, the family values, because when we talked about the generational programming, right, there's different ethnicity cultures that you'll find the exact same correlation of methodologies. And when I say that, hey, if there's a public problem, or if there's a family problem, or abuses, let's just go there, abuses of many different forms, narcissistic relationships, you sweep that under the rug. You pretend that everything is okay. What does that teach the children? To do the exact same thing, because you normalize toxicity, right? So to me, the first thing is take a inner look at yourself. Are you coming from a healed space or a toxic place? So before you start impacting your community, your family, is your heart set right? Is your mindset right? Or are you just this hypocrisy that preaches, that puts the motivational quotes, as I call it, even biblical scriptures, but you don't live it because you're in pain, you're hurting. So you find your validation. I've come across coaches and therapists, they find their validations by helping their client while they themselves, their house is not in order. So my first question is your personal, internal, spiritual, emotional house in order? Do you know who you are? Do you know your true identity and how God had made you to be? Do you know that calling? If not, let's work together, right? The book itself, I found myself in a unique situation of empowering Tibetan nuns. We didn't speak the language. I had translators, was not allowed to talk about faith because of different religious beliefs. They were hungry. The reason they were in the nunnery was not because it was a lifelong commitment of their callings for religious servitude. It was to access, and this was in India, it was so that they can have access to education. Imagine that. Access to education equals lifelong servitude. They'd rather be inside the nunnery because they're treated worse than animals outside of it, where there's no women's rights. I have a million stories about those experiences. But that book you talked about, the Women Who Influence, are laid out with kingdom principles, because I'm going to take it back to the basics. I'm not a preacher. I'm not an evangelizer, right? but I am a woman that God had just the privilege of serving in such a higher order where he can trust me with some of these handlings that I have, or all the handlings he's given me, I should say, of really pointing back to the root cause. What is the Genesis blueprint program he gave you? And you can't be out there helping, healing, impacting while you yourself are hurting because you don't know who you are.
That's an important message for mothers, because instinctively, and even as women, we put other people first. And so, and we just continue to pour and pour and pour, and our vessel is empty. And so that idea of being in touch with yourself and getting in touch with your purpose, even in a season of hands-on parenting, like say young children, recognizing the season for what it is, but not losing yourself in it, being the best you can be in that season, but also recognizing that you are more, there's more intended for you in this life, and that your child is even going to need that more, because they're not always going to be in that state where they depend on you all the time. They're going to become independent. They're going to pull away, and then what do you have left? So I like that idea. Now you I know that you do have 2 decades of experience in the corporate world.
Yes.
What kinds of leadership skills did you find which were applicable to motherhood, both personally and what you talk about with mothers?
Prioritization of competing attention, competing priorities, time management. Because when you ask a mother, if you were to list down, even if you're a homemaker, what is your to-do list? Right? From the time you wake up to prepare the breakfast, to the children drop off long lines, to the list of chores, to the list of engagement, you go home, now it's homework time, and thank you for Google, right? Because some of these homeworks are not within our generation, but that's become more difficult or just confusing. So I take to corporate, what are your 3 current priorities? And also, what are you doing to engage your own personal development? One of my former mentors, she, God rest her, just her life. She was a coach up until she was 95 years old.
Wow.
Right. And her biggest want at that point, imagine having that love for life. She wanted to go on an African safari with her entire family, and they're like 92. And her husband and her have been married for 63 years. I had the question, how'd you keep it together? There's peace in your household, right?
Right.
You talk about Proverbs 31 woman, she's honored and blessed. I had the privilege of attending her online because there was a pandemic celebration of life when she passed. And the people that were present were from people from different parts of the world who's known this woman for over 40, 50 years. I mean, you name it. I'm like, what a legacy. Legacy. So imagine if you were to actually, what corporate has taught me is goal setting. I'm going to challenge this to purpose setting.
Yes.
Are you feeding your soul the necessary tools that, despite all the 10 million to-do lists as a mom, what are you doing for yourself? So I take it back to that old, the mentor, like I said, she was 92, wanting to go on African safari. 95 was when she passed, or 96. She said to me, look, in a time where I was very distressed, she goes, what is the small thing you can enjoy? Just a tiny thing,
Yes.
melody.
Yes.
And I found myself waking up one day at 3 a.m, complete dark. And it gave me the most joy, despite all the adversities at the time, was an ice cream bar, a Magnum triple chocolate or caramel something ice cream bar. And I sat in the dark eating that ice cream bar. And it was just this euphoric state of going, who said I can't have an ice cream bar at 3 a.m? What rules was put on me that says it's bad for you, or why can't you have ice cream for breakfast situation? Obviously, there's the sugar rush, but in that simple moment, and all the quietness of the world, it was me and this ice cream bar, and it just gave me so much little joy. So to the mothers out there, especially the single mothers out there that's having to do this dual role, 5 minutes of pocket time, 10 minutes of pocket time, or when the children goes to bed, those baths, that breathing, that book, Find something that ignites your soul.
Mm-hmm.
And here's what really helps me. Forget yes, there's the vision board, but you can only look at so much. Number one, what are your prayer list for yourself, for your children? Read the scripture, pair it. If for those of you who have not seen the movie The War Room, that teaches you the power of prayer. Because when regardless of what your faith is, there seems to be a consistency that there is this one source. I will call it God. I'll call Jesus Christ. I call the Holy Spirit. Some people call universe, whatever, right? But in my case, it said there's a belief system that there's something way bigger than us at the end of the day. You know, for Christians, tap into that faith because there is a healing process, right? That happens. Even if it's that ice cream bar was very healing for me.
Can't do it every day, but yeah.
I can't do it every day, but you find those little things. Some people are athletic. They go for a walk, jog, workouts, right? But women, do something for yourself, even in the simple joys. Because as a little girl, I'm pretty sure all of us at one point wanted to be superheroes. Nobody ever said, I'm going to be stuck in a corporate job. I'm going to be a tax.
I can't wait.
No, we wanted to be Wonder Women. We wanted to be superheroes. We were going to be queens of the world. All of this. Get back to that little girl and talk to her. You know, and instead of approaching it from the point of what happened to you, which most of us do, I do it too. What happened to you?
Sure.
It's so here's everything that's happened. How do I align back to that desire to do something different? Again, it goes back to that identity, right? Who are you?
Yeah, I like that.
We'll be right back after this. Are you a parent looking to unlock your potential in raising confident, capable, and courageous children? Well, look no further. Join us at the upcoming Parent and Purpose Summit Back to School Edition, where parenting experts from around the world will come together to share their wisdom and insights. I'm Carol Maletta, founder of the Parenting 411. This summit is your opportunity to gain essential skills and tools to become the parent you've always aspired to be. Over 5 incredible days, we'll dive deep into topics like positive discipline, effective communication, mental health, self-care, school readiness, and more. An attendee from our last summit told us, "This summit changed my parenting game. I feel more confident and connected with my children than ever before." So secure your seat at the Parent and Purpose Summit today. Visit parentandpurposesummit2023.com. That's parentandpurposesummit2023.com. And click the registration button to join us on this transformative journey. The Parent and Purpose Summit, where intentional parenting begins. And we're back with the Parenting 411.
You know, when I think about all of your work with UNICEF and other global organizations, I wonder how we can communicate the importance of that kind of work to the younger generation, and especially for moms, so that they can instill a sense of global responsibility in their children.
We live in a day and age of connectivity and technology like never before. So the global viewership is there. The question is, what are you feeding the global? Is it the Kardashians? Or, it's been said, like TikTok. It's very interesting, and I don't want to get into political spaces here, but it has been stated that what is shown in China are videos that engages the mind in learning, investing, medical science, engineering. There's a control factor of what the children and what people are able to view that actually betters themselves. But in the Western world, in the European world, it's a different viewership. Yes, it's funny, it's entertaining. I enjoy some of the things that I just crack up or motivation, but more than anything, you've turned it into complete circus. Who is more idiotic on the next video on these crazy challenges? And guess what? There is an agenda. They're feeding money. I'm going to call you a content creator. Get sillier, right? So when you look at the advocacy, then it's the mindset. What are you feeding? What are you watching? When
Yes.
I went into this advocacy, I
Mm-hmm.
had no idea, but all I know is I had my journey that hurt a lot, leaving everything behind. Was I a true refugee? I was some sort of a refugee because I had to disappear, right? So I look at refugee status as a whole different set of, it's not a label that is negative.
Mm-hmm.
Go deeper. What caused them to depart from their countries?
Right.
What was the root cause of that? Because, hey, we're facing it too. There's
Mm-hmm.
hunger, there's, homelessness in America.
Mm-hmm.
Caused that, right? So when you're saying, how do we engage in a global, don't be selfish. Let's just go with that. You
Okay.
are the solution. Let's get out of the mindset of let's leave a better planet for our children. Mothers, no, you raise better children for the planet,
Whoa.
right? Raise
Yeah.
better children for the planet.
I
What's the planet
love
gonna do?
that.
Take care of itself,
That's it. That's
right?
it.
But no,
Mm-hmm.
you're raising the person that could practically cure cancer. You're raising the person, the little person that could be the next, president of whatever country you're in. You're raising the person that can take a look at your adversity. Like I looked at my mother and I felt her pain, but she was quiet in her pain, but
Mm-hmm.
she was surrendered in her faith.
Mm-hmm.
No, that is what anchored me when I state these things, because when I speak, when I go in advocacy, it's no longer just about my children. It's children of nations. If not me, then who situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
As much as
Mm-hmm.
that is overstated over and over again, but at least I can honestly say that when God calls me home, I'm not after this accolades that everybody has seen. They're wonderful, they're beautiful, okay, credentials, but ultimately, I would rather face our creator and say, and when face the well done, good and faithful one.
Mm-hmm.
Because the
Mm-hmm.
alternative of that is, I don't want to think about it. It's scary,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if, you know, I have this wonderful person in my life, and he, despite his own background of adversities,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
a conversion to Christianity, I have never seen somebody really spend time in compassionate caring for the homeless. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
not talking about, hey, let's just feed them. Hey, it's the holiday. So, and oh, this craziness. Let me take a selfie with a homeless so
Oh gosh.
I can
Yes.
validate how I'm helping people, right?
Yes.
No, and then they're trying to say it by this craziness. Well, I'm just trying to engage the community by showing this are the actions I'm taking. Number one, the first question I asked them, did you ask permission from the human
Mm-hmm.
that you can take their picture and
Mm-hmm.
share their story?
Mm-hmm.
Did you? Did you forget that common respect? How
Mm-hmm.
would you feel if some stranger came up to your child and just started taking that picture, or yourself, right?
Right.
So why do we do it to those that are in destitution,
Mm-hmm.
thinking it's okay without asking for permission? This particular man, Carol, would sit down with them, would
Mm-hmm.
open the Bible and minister to them, would ask, and this is what became game changer. Ask for their name. What is your name? What led you to this?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a feeling of invisibility and being invaluable,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, my job in advocacy is I humanize the statistics. Look, the government sees papers, funding, numbers,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
problems,
Mm-hmm.
but when I can take the human story of suffering and then
Right.
show some of the accountability,
Mm-hmm.
then it changes the game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now you feel it because stories bridges the gap.
Yes.
Truthful stories are even
Right.
more powerful.
Right, right. And that's what's going to make the difference. We have, our leaders are well educated, and this is probably the case around the world. They have the pedigree that, the educational pedigree, the academic, they have all that down, but it really is going to come down to the heart and really the human connection, and remembering that at the other end of this legislation that you're pushing or these budget decisions that you're making are people who are going to be impacted. And that's just a change in mindset and heart set that we're going to really need at the top. And I'm just very grateful that we have people like you who are engaging leaders around the world, and hopefully little by little minds are being changed, and actually not only in the leadership, but even in the populace, like that we come to expect that. And that's what we vote for. And those are the kinds of people we put in office or put in positions of leadership because we care about those things too. So, as we draw to a close, I wonder, to a mom that might be listening today, before she looks up some outside help or anything like that, what are some things they could do today while their children are at school to like start on a course of this discovery of their purpose and taking steps, making plans to activate their purpose?
It's really a simple question that boils down to this. What's your passion? Follow that. Follow that. Let's take a look at Mrs. Field's cookies. It started with baking in the kitchen. I follow this particular Facebook account. She is a mom, right? And it started with putting videos of how she prepares meals for her son that are just so well. I'm like, that's phenomenal. I wish I could prepare lunches like that for my children when they were young, right? But she just engaged the community. Next thing you know, this woman has hundreds of thousands of followers. She talks about how she cooks meals for her husband, and she's a homemaker. She shows literally what happens to her day from the time she gets up at 4 a.m. to prepare the meal, right, to the late night, to the cleaning, to the, if she has time for herself, Zumba. And she talked about transparency. She was raised by a single mother from a different country who had to make ends meet. So her mother was absent physically a lot. So it was deeply ingrained in her that one day when she becomes a mother, she's going to pour everything to her family so that she loves them deeply. So she's scared. So that is what created this social media, because the way she just serves the meals, the way she cleans the houses. But now we know what caused it. It was the absence of her mother that she longed for. So she understood why. Right? Because if the mother didn't work so hard from 4 a.m. to 10 at night, where she was talking about that at her first grade, second grade, she was having to cook her own breakfast because the mother was already out of the house and she was left to care for her siblings. So she was cooking since she was like 7 years old, right? And became a phenomenal cook today because of those. As that, mothers, what is your purpose? It's directed to the gifts that God has given you. What's your passion? Go back to that. Want to be a singer? Go for it. Want to be a writer? Go for it. And if you don't know how to start, contact people like me. Contact the other coaches that resonates with your walk, right? Because look, the adversities of my life, as I stated in the beginning of this interview, became the catalyst for my purpose. If I didn't experience disappearing and losing it all, would probably not, and then seeing the 20,000 people that was suffering because of government corruptions or more than that, right? I just think 20,000 was the baseline. I have no idea how far One Night, One Voice went in the Philippines. All I know is it brought me to where I am today, right? It's because now I have the tool set to help other women. I have the tool set that helps men. I have the tool set that apparently the government thinks that I can educate them with as well, different governments. But it all came down to acts of service. And also the values I've instilled. Look, your children will follow you. May you be an inspiration, may you be the source of their motivation to keep changing and transforming not only their own lives, but outside community. May you not be the cause of their toxic, repeated behavior because you've normalized it. That's a heavy reflection. And because I went through that too, right? And back then of my self-reflections, what toxicity have I normalized that became acceptable? And I had to break those patterns, right? So as mothers, we do have a responsibility, right? Because your greatest legacy is found in your offspring at the end of the day, because they continue. That's why the Bible talks about those generational curses or generational blessings.
Right. Well, thank you so much for that. Now, how can we follow your work, your website or social media handles, anything like that?
Yes, I have 3 websites, so stay tuned for drmelodygarcia.com. That is being built right now. Facebook, Melody Garcia, and then again, Dr. Melody Garcia in Instagram. Carol will have all my full information. I look forward to impacting your lives. For those of you that would like to work on the bigger spaces, or even let's just say, who am I? Let's go with it. Who am I, and how do I get out of this cycle of pain that
Right.
keeps repeating itself, and finding it in different people that I keep welcoming in, and
Wow.
saying, the word hope again, hold on, pain ends. But how do you get those tool sets? Stop going with cookie cutter teachings.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much again, Dr. Melody Garcia. Thank you for joining me, and for all of our listeners. I love when you tune in. By all means, like, share, and subscribe to the Parenting 411 podcast. Share this episode with a friend. I think there were so many genuine gems and nuggets that I think that we can learn from. I'm probably going to listen to this episode again. I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. Thank you. And then continue to follow the Parenting 411 at Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. If you'd like to catch the video, if you're listening to this episode right now, but you'd like to see the video, by all means, tune into that as well on the YouTube channel, of course, the Parenting 411. And remember, it is never too late to be the parent you want to be.